This is episode 20. Welcome back, everyone, to the Well-Rounded Wealth podcast. So today, we decided to do something a little different. This is going to be kind of an end-of-year recap. We actually started the idea in January, Pat, for Well-Rounded Wealth.
Yeah, it's been almost a year now. So, our first episode that we recorded was, back in May? So, officially.
We released episode 1 in the intro. I think the date's April 14th.
Yep.
When we hard release. We snuck it onto Spotify in like February. When we snuck it out there, hardly anyone listened, and then we did our Instagram announcement and posted on our accounts that we're starting this thing, and then it felt like people actually knew what it was.
Yeah.
But yeah, you called me in January. We had that call about the transition you wanted to make, and then we thought of the idea to make the podcast, and we started calling, and then I was like, yeah, I have a studio at my college that we could use. And then he started making the trips, and then we recorded in batches, I remember, which is so funny looking back. Well, we did the intro in the first episode as one, just to test, like, is this anything here? Is there anything here? And then I actually really liked that first episode. That's up there for one of my favorites. Just because I don't know, because we just tried it. We didn't really have much of a plan. We didn't know what we were doing. And I felt like we kind of found something. And we got some cool feedback. And I was nervous about the feedback going in. I'm like, maybe everyone will not hate it, but just not think it's that interesting or that good.
Definitely had like a fuck it, all right. Once I told you about it, you're like, yeah. I'm like, all right, let's plan it and let's just do it. So,
yeah.
It's definitely been a fun journey. I would not even only say just learning about the whole entire podcasting field, but also what we speak about and how we relay our experiences in life to just interacting with each other. And then the people that also hear it and give feedback on how that impacts their lives.
Yeah, that was what I didn't expect when we first started, just that people would reach out to us, either DM the Well-Rounded Wealth Instagram, or people who knew me well would text me or text you or DM our private accounts. And I was like, oh, wow, this is actually really cool to reconnect with people too. That was the unexpected thing that I got out of it. Just people who I hadn't talked to in a while, letting me know they listened, letting us know they listened, and just getting the chance to connect again, which I thought was really, really cool. That was what I didn't expect, and it's easily been the coolest surprise of the experience so far.
For sure. So, as a little bit more of a recap episode, we kind of just want to rehash some of the episodes that we did talk about, and then really just communicate on what we've learned and how it's impacted our lives, and hopefully you guys can get some reminders of what we've spoken about. So, Jack, what is your favorite episode or most impactful episode?
Ooh, my favorite? It's hard to pick an absolute favorite. I think I'm going to give a couple, if that's okay. If that's not cheating the question. Shoot. I'm going to give a couple. The first one is when we had our friend Clayton on as a guest. It's called episode 4, Maintaining Our Friendships. And the reason I really liked that one was, first off, that was our first kind of challenge in switching the flow of how we were doing it, because it was released as episode 4. It was supposed to be episode 5. We switched 4 and 5, I remember, because we just thought if I had to pick a least favorite, it's 5. But so we just kind of wanted to keep the momentum going. You're like, oh, like a guest, even though he's not a famous person, it did well. It's one of our best episodes of the ratings. I just think it's because there was an extra dynamic. We were in your apartment recording that episode. You and Clayton were sharing a microphone because one of the microphones didn't work that I took from Elon. So you and Clayton shared a mic. And I had to figure out how to edit that all right. So that was also kind of just logistically a fun challenge to kind of figure out how to navigate that. And if you really listen to that episode, you can tell you and Clayton are on the same mic and that you're a little further from the microphone.
And we're sharing a stool.
Yeah, sharing a stool.
Keeps breaking.
But yeah, that was kind of where I was like feeling just pretty good about, like I'm enjoying what we're talking about. And we also, that was our first episode where we didn't write out our notes prior to the episode. Every episode 1, 2, 3, 4, episode 1, 2, 3, and 5, but it was the fourth we recorded. We had our laptops out in front of us with notes on our topics and questions to be ready to ask each other. And it felt like we were almost staring at our computers, making an official report rather than just me and you talking to each other.
Yeah,
that
it was a little
Clayton
more
episode
stiff.
broke that. Yeah.
Yeah. That's
That
definitely
episode
a
broke
flow
that.
thing that I think, have both learned, and it's been a nice natural transition that I think we can even apply to like everyday interactions. Like a lot of times people go up and they're like, all right, I'm going to ask this person if I just met them, like, where are you from? Like, how many family members do you have? Are you brother, sister, or whatever? And it's so nice just being able to be aware and present of like, oh, this person says something, so I can play off of that. And I think that's just better communication and conversation
Yeah.
capabilities to be able to be more engaged with whoever you're talking to.
Yeah, totally. I think, going into real world comparisons and how the podcast has helped, I would say that's been big because I talk to you all the time. So it's not like we're ever getting to know each other when we're talking. And I'm somehow able to talk to you for an hour. So I'm like, if I can do that with Patrick, someone who I know so much about, and vice versa, then I can probably survive a conversation with someone new where I do have things to learn about.
I think that was, so I'll interlay this off. Probably one of my favorite episodes was just the power of self-awareness. I think we titled it, "Can be like a life hack in any situation."
Yeah,
And it's,
you know, while you're talking, I'm just gonna have the episode titles pulled up in front of me. I have a pretty good memory, but it'll be good to be able to fact check ourselves.
yeah, so that was 14, and playing off of that is just having that childlike curiosity where you can learn something new from every person. And it's just, okay, you have to ask the right questions, and then you just have to be genuinely curious about learning new things that person brings up. For example, I actually ran into last night Will Joyner, and he was talking about his company, Yana, which is great cause, and it stands for You Are Not Alone, and it's a kind of mental health, like people who have lost someone or gone through a social impact in their life, and they just want a community to be able to share these experiences with. And he was all fired up about it. And when someone has that, and you can keep playing, not necessarily playing off of it, but going down that rabbit hole of like, okay, why do you like this? What's your goal with it? What brought you to go down this path? It just creates such a more interesting dynamic.
Definitely, especially once you break that barrier of feeling like you're having a real conversation and not just the small talk. I don't mind small talk at all either, because sometimes small talk is just you're having fun shooting the shit with your friends. That's awesome. Like, I love that. You know, my roommate Cole and I, we have small talk, but it's because we're friends. We don't need to have a deep conversation every time we talk, but when you can go there and know you can go there, it makes it that much more meaningful to me.
Now I'm kind of just thinking of this, but small talk between women and men, I feel like are very different. Because as guys, we don't talk as much. So when we're shooting the shit or small talk, it's like, hey, what's up? It's a lot more sparse in terms of, I feel like every time I'm around a girl, that's just like, blah, 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 blah. not that that's a derogatory thing, but they just talk about a lot more, and they don't have as much of a, I don't know, I guess audible censor on them, which is great. Yeah.
Well, I would say I can be like that sometimes.
You kind of just start rambling.
Yeah, I could totally ramble. We talk an hour an episode. We can ramble a little bit, Pat. We definitely,
true.
We've had plenty of sidetracks and stuff like that. Sometimes we have a title for an episode, especially in the teens episodes since we've gone virtual. We'll start with a topic, and then by the end, we think we should retitle the episode because we've gone on so many tangents. And then sometimes we do.
Do you go on the tangents, or do you just stick to what we were speaking about?
Do I go on the tangents? Sorry? Say that
No,
again?
you asked, like, and then sometimes we do. Like,
Oh yeah, sometimes, yeah. We try to loop it back as much as we can, because sometimes we identify we're getting sidetracked. That was probably our biggest issue, and maybe to a degree still is when we're doing these episodes. Sometimes I feel like we should just let it ride.
Yeah.
You know, like we're talking about something completely different now. Well, you know what? That's what we're talking about now. It is what it is.
Yeah.
That's kind of how conversations go. But also then it's weird because you go in with an objective, or we go in with an objective of wanting to hit a certain topic. So then sometimes we feel the need to course correct, I think, when we are sidetracking too much. Like, okay, let's loop it back to, building the personal resume.
Yeah.
That was an episode where that totally happened. Where that was 10, I think, in the dentist when we were in your mom's orthodontist office recording for a bit over the summer.
And I actually think for me and you, that's almost what we're transitioning to a little bit more, because it is great to have these topics, and I think they're very important. And I mean, this is just stuff we're interested in, but we're almost going to curate it to where, okay, we can just talk about what we're interested on a weekly or daily basis. We don't have to have this super regimented, okay, we're going down a health path for a month or a psychology path for another month kind of thing. So it'll be a lot more diverse in terms of what we're actually learning and growing into. And that'll just be able to attract more people and help people learn about different things that we just find interesting on a weekly basis. Because I know, I mean, you can speak to this, but I always love reading and figuring new things out, especially related to other podcasting or speaking to other people or how you communicate stories, and then also personal development, business, and there's just so many fascinating things out there. And it's this rebranding, or whatever we want to call it, is going to allow us to be more flexible in what we want to talk about. I love Joe Rogan's way he approaches it as a vibe creator, which who knows, me and Jack might just start smoking ayahuasca in here or whatever he does. So
Yeah, I think that's really important, especially if we start to do guests, like I know we want to work towards next year. But creating a vibe is everything. To make it less of just an interview where we bring on a guest and we're just asking that guest questions about what their field of study is or what they do, or the reason, whatever the reason is we have them on, instead of just, yeah, how you doing, man? Yeah, what's up? And then just literally, but as weird as that sounds to say it like that, I think that is important, because when you're listening to a podcast, at least when I listen to other podcasts, I really like it where it just feels like an organic conversation,
yeah, and that's definitely spurns from being able to ask good questions and being able to
That's true.
contextualize little things where someone says, I went on a hike yesterday. Oh, okay. Instead of just like, oh, what was the hike? It's like, what got you into hiking? You can kind of dig deeper, and that just comes through practice. And that's a lot of the stuff that we've learned talking to each other, and then other people approaching us, is how do you take what seems like a surface level statement or activity that someone's done or is interested in and really dig deep into it.
Yeah, that's very true for how I've changed, because I don't, it's not that I never did that, but that's not where a lot of my conversations would go. And when you actually meet someone, having that just intention of, yeah, what do you like? What excites you? What lights that fire in your eye? That that sparkle that's like when you bring up a topic, like if someone brings up, like movies to me, not just movies, but let's say like the religious influences that are in the Star Wars movies. But I'd be like, oh my God, yeah, let's talk about that. Hell yeah. Like I would get so excited because it's one of those, especially the niche things that you think people wouldn't be interested in that you are interested in. All of a sudden there's the connection.
It's just like walking. I think how we could curate is when you walk through a museum, right? There's almost too much to look at. But if you really focus on, if you go into that museum, like I want to see, I'm just going to take the Mona Lisa because I'm not really good with museums. So I want to see the Mona Lisa.
And to the Louvre.
I want to know, okay, what was the impact that this painting had, not only on the future, but why is it so important, all that stuff. So if you can niche down on one certain thing, especially with other people that you learn, then you don't have this very, I guess, a mile wide but an inch deep type conversation where you just learn, you're just kind of spitballing a bunch of stuff, but you don't really know what the true meaning is behind whatever you're talking about. And that's why I think that like the conversation we had about hobbies is great, because we did a whole movie dive and on stuff that I never would have known, and that you have experience with it, you studied it, and you're super passionate about it, and you can incite interest in other people just based on how you speak about it.
Yeah, totally. I thought the hobby episode was really cool too, because those are the things that deep down sometimes I just want to talk about, with someone, with a friend like you. And but I always wanted to kind of avoid just talking about things we liked, because I was thinking, well, that's not the brand, that's not relatable. But then I was like, one, fuck it, it's our podcast. We can talk about whatever we want. and two, I guess my fear would be the listeners that we have may not have an interest in, movies. Or I know I talked about Star Wars on that episode a little bit. Mm-hmm. The idea of going on a Star Wars talk for 5 minutes or so, I was like, no, I can't do that on this podcast. People don't want to hear that. So people don't want to, or won't know what I'm talking about. People won't understand. But I was like, yeah, it is what it is. Yeah, who cares?
Yeah.
And then you learn things, because I learned hearing about your hobbies too. Well, kind of, because I know your hobbies already.
Do you? I have a secret life outside of it.
Are there any secret hobbies you mentioned the other week? That aren't your go-to, that I don't know?
I mean, I like trying. I guess one of my hobbies is just trying new things. And
I feel like that could be any hobby, Patrick.
Oh, yeah, I know. 100%. But like I actively try new things, or try new things like once a month.
Try that. Yeah.
So, and which is good and bad, because I guess that prohibits me from becoming really good at any one hobby, but whatever. Maybe one secret one is I love wine and almost the whole culture behind it.
Yeah.
So I guess that's not something I really mentioned, but I just find it fascinating that there's a whole entire, how does one not even make a bottle of wine, but to find out that you can store it for 1,000 years, and then the price goes from $10 to like $10,000 per this bottle of red liquid that, who knows? I don't know. That's kind of cool. And then the different types of flavors you can get from it. And not even wine is interesting because it's not just a flavor profile. It's what your mouth feels. So whether it can be a little bit drier or bolder, or because it just hits you a different way, I guess. So
yeah, and
it's a little offshoot
on our
hobby.
Europe trip, I learned a lot about that. I don't have the passion that you do for it. I just don't. I don't know where my slight disconnect is. Not a huge one. I like wine. That made me like wine, that trip. Mm-hmm. Like, I drank wine at my family Christmas party last night. I never would have done that a year ago. But now I'm into wine. And I'm like kind of learning. It's just hard for me to identify what I'm tasting in my brain. Does that make sense? It's hard for me to put words on what I'm tasting. I'm
That's
just
the
kind of
hardest part.
Yeah. So, and I almost don't have the patience to try to, you know what? I'm just like, oh yeah, this tastes good.
Yeah. I mean, that's another thing that I enjoy as an offshoot of it is expanding your vocabulary and your vernacular around wine,
It's
because
true.
it's the same thing as food. So many people are like, "Oh, this is amazing." Okay, but why is it amazing? Is it a little bit more acidic? Do you get a little bit more zestiness or whatever? So it's, and when you see someone who can really describe it, like go look at Gordon Ramsay. I think we briefly talked about this, but when that guy describes food, you're like, "Oh my God, fireworks are going off," because I know how you're speaking about, say, a steak, and when I actually taste that steak, I can almost imagine that in my mind what you're describing instead of just saying
Yeah.
this is good. So that, I think that's kind of cool, is being able to put an image in someone's mind based on the words that you're saying.
I think for any passion and or hobby, what makes it interesting is that people decided they liked something and they decided they wanted to learn why they like it. Because like you said, I can compare like my interest in film to someone's interest in food. You know, they knew they liked something. They knew they really liked a meal. And they said, you know, I want to learn exactly the methods behind this that made it a good meal, instead of just, you know, oh, that's a good, you know it when you get it. Just like a good movie. If you like a movie, you know you liked the movie. But then you start to ask yourself, okay, but why did I like this movie? What did they do that worked? Or what did the chef cook that worked? What combinations did the chef in the kitchen make that made this entree phenomenal? What did the film director do? What did the writers do? What had to come together to make this work? And why does this stand out to me more than other movies? Why does this entree stand out to me more than other entrees? That's what I think is really cool.
Yeah, I'm totally with you there. And I think the underlying theme of both of those are understanding human psychology, which is another thing that I've done a ton of reading on. Not only with how your body language is, but also how you communicate whatever you're interested in or whatever you're trying to convey. Because that, when you really break it down and look at that, how to convey a message, it's a lot more complicated than it seems. Because
Yeah.
for someone who's just learning to speak and write or read or whatever, it seems as simple as, okay, I just have to say the words that I'm thinking so that Jack understands it. But it's a little bit more complicated, because you're trying to take, say, a paragraph of a description that's in your head, condense it down to a sentence. Jack then has to interpret that sentence and then retranslate it into a paragraph in his head. So it is very hard to get that paragraph that's in my head to accurately transfer to your translation of the paragraph in your head. And I think that when you learn how to convey that or storytell in that manner, it's really impressive, because you can take something super complicated, and if you explain it in the right way and communicate it in the right way, you'll see on people's faces like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. And that's honestly something I'm still working on. So
That's something, I'm definitely still working on. I think I can do a good job at articulating my thoughts on something to other people, but I'm no pro. I'm no pro at all. I think this podcast has helped you and me with that a little bit too, just in general, being able, especially, it's helped me talking with adults. And by my definition of adults are my cousins and family members who are in their late 30s, early 40s now, and talking to them instead of a little kid going to see these older people, and not, it's just clearly like we're on a different level in life, a different stage in life, but instead actually trying to relate to them as they are, like at the level that they are at, instead of, talking about what college I want to go to or stuff like that. You know how you get that question in high school all the time. Instead of having that conversation, it's, I'm talking about to my cousin about having new kids for the first time and what marriage life is like, what work-life balance, what their definition of that is, and kind of just talking, and I think this podcast has helped me with that, because obviously I don't know what would have happened if we didn't start this podcast, but I feel like it would have been a little different. I don't see myself asking them the questions that I did ask them if I didn't start doing this podcast.
Yeah, it certainly expanded the way that I think. And it's also expanded the way that I perceive people, because especially peers and people that are older than you. Because when I was growing up, you always think that the people that are older than you have everything together. But
totally
diving down the topics that we have talked about and actually asking the questions that we speak about on a biweekly basis to adults, and then seeing that, oh, that made them think. It's like, okay, we're talking about important things that everyone experiences. It's just what phase of life do they experience them in?
Yeah, definitely. I sometimes wonder with this podcast in general if we're both overthinkers. There's no doubt about that. There's absolutely no doubt about that you and I are both overthinkers. I think that's one thing you and I absolutely have in common. Sometimes I wonder if we're overthinking it already or too early. Have you ever wondered that? If maybe we shouldn't be talking about these topics until we're at a later stage in our life, and if we should just be more, not our age, but more in the mindset of where a lot of our peers are, and not, because at the end of the day, this getting deep, it matters as much as you want it to matter.
Yeah, that's very well said. And I will say this, because I had thought of it. I am very happy that we have had an overthunk about these situations for this reason. Not that it's on a daily basis I want to be thinking about these things, but for the reason that when I do get to these stages, I will have a preconceived belief of how I want it to look. And the more I can reinforce that belief as I grow to that stage, then I won't have to question if I'm on the right track or whatnot in that next phase of life. So it's almost, I know we've talked about this, but backcasting, like playing out how you want your life to look in, almost just take it each decade. If I can get that experience from my future self and saying like, hey, it's okay, you're supposed to be feeling this way in 10 years, revisit this during that time, but until then you have to do XYZ, then that's great. Like, I'm all for that. So
yeah, I think it might help with conviction down the line, just having, because I think we're definitely in a place where we're trying to figure out what are our values. We talk about this shit all the time on the podcast, like, what are our values? What is our code? And I think everyone has their own individual code. I think everyone should have their own individual code of what they care about and what they believe in. So I think it's definitely helped with starting to develop some convictions of mine. So maybe when I am at an older stage, I won't try to be figuring out what is it I believe in or what is it I prioritize. Maybe I'll just know. I'll just have my convictions. And, roughly everyone does know what is important to them, because it's just what you're thinking about, what you care about. Yep. But to actually be able to prioritize and just have that kind of set in stone of, this is what's important to me. This is what I care about. And now that I know that, I can accept that there are questions I will never get the answer to, and I can just live my life and enjoy the moment. Yeah.
One of the greatest quotes I'd love to recite on this topic is, you believe in what you believe in until you don't.
Yeah, that's true. Our minds will probably change plenty too. Yeah.
So you know what belief you have until someone comes up with a different idea that makes you question which idea is better. Mm-hmm. And I think right now I have certain beliefs that are set in stone that I would say are pretty much like 99% foundation, like rock solid in. But I do know that through the interactions that we've had on this podcast is I have a much more open perception on, yes, I want to hear your opinion on this and your belief on this because I am open to change. I think one of the biggest topics that we've spoken about is religion, with how our beliefs have shifted there, because we both grew up Catholic and then discovered different things, and it's okay to accept a different belief, especially religious.
Yeah. Yeah, our religion talks, I know we've had a few. I've really enjoyed having those with you. We don't need to get into it for forgot this is a recap episode for a second. Here we go again.
That's okay. Fuck it.
Exactly. Fuck it. But yeah, but that's definitely an area where by the time I have settled down a little bit in life, I want to have convictions for my spirituality. And I definitely don't. It's very up in the air for me right now, and
Yeah.
And I'll say this, I will never think I'll get to a point where I'll say, this is the way, this is the truth, because it's called faith for a reason. It's because it's faith. But you have to choose that. You just have to know that it's a choice, and then you can have conviction in that choice of choosing to have faith, but also knowing that that does not mean you have the answer, and that because you chose that, because I chose that, that means that I know the right way, but it's the way I chose.
Yeah. Dude, and I will say this, because I've been thinking about it, and we've talked about kind of nomad capitalist type stuff with being able to travel around the world and be a little bit more flexible. It is hard in America to see the impact of faith nowadays. That I've definitely noticed, because I think so many, there, or at least in my environment, I don't encounter faith as much.
I rarely do.
Yeah.
Honestly, I mean, obviously we've only been alive in the time that we've been alive in, but I feel like, specifically my exposures to Catholicism and Christianity, I feel like it's not as, like, cool as it used to be. I don't know if it was ever...
Fair.
I don't...
I don't think I've ever thought about it that way, but...
Not... I don't mean, like, like...
To the crusade.
Yeah, you're like... Not like, yo, like, we hit on Saturday night mass, bro, but, like, not like that. But hearing at least my family talk, my parents talk and other people talk, and some of my family talking last night, it was just kind of more of a social aspect. Like, it was more of just a thing you do because you do it. You just go to church. It doesn't mean that you have these, high, like, you're highly committed to the faith or the doctrine and, like, are a huge follower of the religion. But you're like, yeah, we go to church, and yeah, we pray, and yeah, it's chill. I feel like it's either you're really religious or you're not. That's that's the vibe I get. I don't know a lot of people that are like, oh yeah, I go to church and pray because, hell yeah, I care about the people in my life, and I just want to sit down, meditate, think about that, be in a community, in an environment once for an hour a week, or any other form of practice that you choose, and is chill. I don't see that, and maybe that's just my environment, but it's either you're in it or you're not.
That conviction behind a why, I think that's one of the biggest delineations, is there's not as much of a why behind it. And I think that's something that we've been able to definitely convey in the podcast is, I wouldn't say question everything, but like question decisions and beliefs that were almost imposed upon you from the day you were born. And it's not necessarily that you need to question it because they're bad. It's just you have the free will to choose what you believe. And from the moment you were a little kid, you will always have some aspect of your life that was imposed upon you, whether it's cultural, societal, the way you were raised. And once you, even if you still believe it, take a Catholicism, for example, even if you still believe it, question why you believe it to reinforce those beliefs. So you don't get down the line and be like, okay, why did I just spend 30 years of my life going to church? Like, this was just something that we always did, but why do we do it?
It's almost like in hobbies that, asking the why, to just exploring that more, I guess could be cool to do. I don't know. I don't have many more thoughts on it. Just
I mean, this was kind of
into
episode 12 is like, are we motivated for the right reasons? Like, why are we doing what we do?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, exactly. But also, yeah, why are we doing what we're doing? Yeah. That's
I'll make
the new
Jack
title.
think.
I know. I really am thinking today. Thinking a ton. I can't
Stay with me.
I know. I was like, I did kind of hit like a freeze in the brain for a second. I was fully. I was like, wait, why? Why do we do what we? Why? Huh? What's happening?
Good stuff.
But yeah, I don't know. I also think that it's okay to just do things because you do them to a degree. I'm actually, I'll challenge the why. I don't think you always need it. You know, say this. If you go to church every Sunday and you like it, and someone asks you why, my answer is, I don't know. I don't care why. I just like it. What can you say against that?
Yeah.
You know, it's like.
Well, you definitely like it for a reason, because it brings you some sort of feeling.
You do. Maybe what I'm getting at is ignorance is bliss.
Yeah.
I think that's what I'm getting at.
Yeah. That's fair. And because if you do something, it's because you experience a feeling from it. And it can be negative or positive.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that you have to do something because it always makes you feel good. You might have to do something and it might make you feel bad, but you might have a obligation to it or something along those lines. But I guess for me, just from my perspective, is I have enjoyed questioning why I believe certain things or how I was raised a certain way. Because of that reason, is because I want to know, is this the path I want to continue down, or do I want to figure out a different one that I've seen other people live? Because there's the beautiful thing about where we are in 2023 in this generation is you can literally, you can define success in any way, shape, or form, whether it's material, monetarily, familial, any way, shape, or form. And you can do it in a million different ways. So, and that's, I guess, the big choice is, one, what is your definition of success, and how do you want to get there?
Yeah. And there's the journey, right?
Yeah.
That's just, you gotta live. You just gotta live life and figure that out, I feel like. And that's the journey to, I guess, well-rounded wealth right there. You just kind of defined that, in my opinion. But I kind of want to talk to you about this too, because, you know, we are planning on a rebrand. I guess we're talking to people listening too. We're planning on rebranding, because I called you in, I don't know, what was it, October? And I was like, I kind of want to rebrand. I kind of want to change the name of the podcast. One, to talk about more things and to not be locked down. But I think in just the podcast being called Well-Rounded Wealth, in and of itself, it makes it sound like we have it. And we don't. I'm very far from having well-rounded wealth. I'm very far from that. I have a long ways to go, and I hope I can get there. I don't even know if I can do it. I'm going to try, but I don't know. And I feel like, especially for people who haven't actually listened and have just heard of the podcast, it's like, wait, you're telling me 2 3-year-old dudes who are at the time are still in college, hasn't even lived in the real world yet, are making a podcast called Well-Rounded Wealth and telling the world how to live. Fuck that.
Well, I think that's the great thing about how we portray it is it's a journey.
When you actually, I feel like for the people who are going to listen to this,
You're
episode,
saying
and
when they see the name.
Well, just when they see the name, when you actually listen, it's like, oh, okay, they're not acting like they know what's up. They're actually just, I look at it as I share my concerns with you, or share like my thoughts on, well, maybe it's this or this, because I don't have a single answer to any of these questions. And until I can really tell people how to get to well-rounded wealth, I would have to have it and have to have gone through it. And then I actually could have advice. Otherwise, it's just all anecdotal and theoretical. That's what this podcast is. It's just us taking the things that we've seen, done, and heard and just kind of talking about it.
Yeah. I will stick by one belief that I do have around well-rounded wealth. Mm-hmm. It's that I think wealth or success or happiness or however you want to define that kind of elusive term is peace. Like if you are at peace with where you are physically, that's great. That means you don't need more and you are happy with where you're at. Same thing with mentally. If you are happy with who you are as a person and you are at peace with that, then you don't desire anything more. Same thing with emotional. If you are in control of your emotions and you are at peace with how you feel and interpret the emotions you feel on a daily basis, then you don't desire to, or you're not envious of feeling other emotions. So I think that is still one thing that I will continue, or I do continue to believe. Now, of course, someone can come along and change that, but I'd say that's a pretty strong conviction of mine. And it is, I'm talking like this is easy. It's not easy. Like, you need to constantly remind yourself, like, in the grand scheme of things, if I take a second and look at my surroundings, am I happy? And most of people, once they attain that self-awareness, can say yes, because you can be in any situation at any monetary status level, and you can either come to terms with where you're at or choose a desire that's out of reach and be disappointed at where you are.
Yeah, I think I was actually just talking about this with a friend of mine, but I think it's hard sometimes, especially been hard for me, because it's been a struggle since I moved down to Atlanta out of college. And when you're struggling, it's, why it's been a struggle. It's been stressful. And at the beginning, embarrassing just because I was an idiot and thinking that someone who just moved out of their house after graduating college should have it figured out. But it's because I wasn't happy with where I am of, not having a job, but stuff like it's hard to both be an aspirational person, especially even, and like when you do get to a point where you can't be complacent to say, no, but I still have a drive. I still want to keep that going. And I think I want to have that always, is to keep my drive, but also, like you said, remember to take a second and look around and be grateful for what I do have.
Yeah. And I think the best way to look at it is, in the way I like to look at it, and Matthew McConaughey did this too, is
I love him.
Did you see his speech where it was, I think it was one of his Emmy speeches?
He's like, his Oscars? 10 years ago.
Yeah. And I'm going to paraphrase here, but he was like, I'm proud of the work I've done because it's going to make me a better man 10 years in the future. And I think that is a great lens to look at it from. One, not only from your perspective of where you are now, it's like, all right, I know I'm doing this is because I want to be that person in 10 years, but also speaking to yourself now from where you are in 10 years, it's like, dude, keep going. Like, you're on the right path. Like, it's okay.
Yeah.
when you're 40, you're gonna be good.
No, that speech did resonate with me. He said it just in the most McConaughey way ever. He's like, someone once asked me, who's your hero? And
Yep.
He's like, my hero is. I said, my hero is me 10 years from now.
Dude, you have a great McConaughey it's just like 2 tones lower.
I think I'm struggling to find it. I didn't sound like him at all at first. He goes, and then 10 years later, that same person, he asked me, so, are you a hero? And he goes, heck no, I'm not my hero. My hero's 10 years from now. He's like,
Yep.
He said he's always chasing it, and he knows that he's never going to catch it. But it keeps him motivated of having someone to chase. So I guess I can take that and say, yeah, always have something to chase. Always my hero is me 10 years from now, wanting to catch that person, wanting to catch future me, but knowing I'll never really catch it, but that's okay. I'm not supposed to catch it, but it's supposed to keep me motivated while also just being very grateful for what I do have around me too. Because that's the process, especially when you're grinding and you're getting after it. You forget to take a second and to say, oh, you know what? I do have some stuff. I am grateful for the things I do have. It could be worse. It could always be worse. Especially for me. I've not had it that bad. I haven't. But for a couple months there, I was really just hard. I think I was too hard on myself. You have to be hard on yourself to push you, but I was almost being hard on myself. Of like, I couldn't even just sit down for a second, just like be a little, be at ease, take a deep breath, relax. The podcast helped me a ton.
Yeah.
Kind of realize that, like, just talking to you. It's like, oh, you know what? I have parents. There are people who don't have parents out there. I have 2 healthy parents. That's incredible. I'm so lucky to have that. I'm healthy. I don't, I'm in good health. I don't have, some people can't walk. Some people are paralyzed. And honestly, it's a disservice of me to not use my legs. If there are people, because if I did become paralyzed and not have my legs, and I saw people with legs not using them, I'd be like,
enjoy those.
I would give anything for legs. And I would probably be annoyed seeing people that have it and don't use it.
Yeah. Yep. I think that's very well said. And that's that concept of being able to associate and dissociate between where you are and where you want to be. And that I know is more a little bit athletically based, but just like, okay, see where you want to be at the start of the day. And then when you start working, just like be present with where you are. And it's when you can continually remind yourself of that, life kind of gets like magical in certain moments. And I think one of my biggest realizations of that is, I've spoken about it before, is I was working on this property that we're in with Cole and I and our real estate company, and I was doing work on there all day, and I was thinking, oh crap, I gotta be at this next thing at 5 or whatever. But it was fall, and as I'm driving, the leaves start falling. I'm like, damn, like this little moment's beautiful. It's great. And I think we based an episode off of that. But those little moments are so, they're so cool. Just cool, I think, is the best way to describe it, because you don't need much, but it's something that's so simple that's like, damn, that makes me happy. So
yeah, and it's just a good little reset. Just like, yeah, things are okay. I'm alive. I'm breathing. But then also you can't go too far with it either, because then if you're just like, yeah, everything's great, but then you're not doing anything.
Well, that's why it's like association.
That's what we've already just said about the balance, and still having to drive, still trying to chase your hero from 10 years. Because like, imagine, sometimes sometimes you got to rant a little bit, and sometimes there are frustrations in your life. Imagine if I had a friend where every time I expressed just a frustration going on in my day to day, and he responded every time like, "You could be paralyzed, Jack. Have you ever thought about that?" I'd want to punch my friend in the face. I'd be like, "You know what? Yeah, I get it."
Going back to early episode, it was just meant to be.
It was just it's meant to be, man. It's just
It's part of the plan.
part of the plan. It just wasn't in the cards.
That's funny.
Yeah, I'd be like, that would get annoyed really fast. So it's like, well, you could be dead. Have you ever thought about that?
Be grateful.
Yeah, be grateful.
Shut up. You'd be grateful I don't punch you in the face right now.
And if someone just had, because when you're in the moment and you're just expressing frustration, you get frustrated in life, and sometimes it feels good to just let that out a little bit. Someone said that to me, like, yeah, you know what? Like, at least you have like a healthy family. At least you don't have any like disabilities. At least you're not a wheelchair paralyzed. I'd be like, yeah, I know. I'd be like, yeah, I get it. I know. You're
Make
right.
you feel bad.
You're right. But also, can they please fix this goddamn elevator?
The inconvenience. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I get it. But also, traffic really sucked today. And this driver did cut me off, and it was annoying.
Yeah, okay, so speaking of traffic, I don't know why this just triggered it. But
Let's talk about traffic.
so Alex Hormozy has a great perceptive on this. I think he has a friend who has got his PhD in psychology. And when you say something for you and me is an inconvenience, say waiting in traffic for an hour is like abominable to us. But what if we were used to waiting in traffic for our entire life for an hour? We wouldn't be as upset with it or frustrated with it because it would be normal. So it's those things that are inconveniencing you out of what happens on a day-to-day basis in your life that you associate something negative with. But I think if you're able to just zoom out and say like, okay, in the grand scheme of things, if this were to happen over and over, then it's not that big a deal. And if I want it to happen less, what do I have to change in order to get around that? Sometimes you might not be able to, but I love talking about the frameworks that we go through in the podcast because everything in life and everything that we've talked about, we can either frame it in a negative or positive way. I think choosing to frame it in that positive way is just so liberating and hard to do, but it is liberating when you can do it.
Yeah, for sure it is. I'm really thinking about traffic right now. Not, I mean, like in the way you're bringing it up and frameworking it.
Yeah. I mean, like, look, if I were to move to LA, I'd be pissed because screw that traffic.
Yeah. Atlanta's got traffic. It's nothing compared to LA, but it's one of maybe the biggest city in the Southeast. Miami's probably up there. I'd say Miami, Atlanta.
Yeah. Probably Atlanta.
Yeah. And traffic can be real bad here, and it can be frustrating, but I don't know. Sometimes it is what it is. You're in traffic.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Going down to patience. Well, anything else you want to cover as a recap and that you learned?
Well, yeah, let's do what we've learned from each other.
Yeah.
I guess I'll ask you first. What do you think, especially, I mean, we've always been super close friends, but now we talk on the phone almost every day and get into deep conversations that we release to the world to listen. And so I would say, what's a big takeaway that you've gotten from me that you maybe didn't see coming or what maybe challenge you or think about something differently?
I think it's the way you carry yourself and you have a much more lighthearted view. And naturally, you have a much more lighthearted view on where you are and where you want to be. Because I think I definitely had the proclivity to take things super seriously growing up. And I still have a natural tendency to do that. But speaking with you and like learning more about how you think about things. And obviously I've known you really well and known your Jackland and all that since we were
Right.
growing up, but really being able to drill into that and say, like, ultimately just don't take yourself so seriously. And that's something I have written on my mirror is like, it's, yes, be professional, dress appropriately, talk appropriately. But if someone doesn't like you, it's not always going to be, it's not your fault. If you carry yourself according to your values and enjoy what you're talking about and enjoy what you're doing, who's to judge you that you have to take everything to the max of seriousness. And that is something that's been like, okay, I don't have to be this kind of stuck up person all the time. Like I can kind of joke around like you're my best buddy and, I don't know, maybe say a little inappropriate quip here and there. And
Yeah.
say, well, that worked or that didn't work, whatever. Like I'll meet new people. It's fine. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's cool. I would say what I've learned so much from you is that I've always known that you're very regimented, very hardworking, and I always did admire it. But actually hearing you talk about the process of getting to a goal, especially let's just say, my dad ran a marathon when I was a kid. Super proud of him. He killed it, and he was in his late 40s, early 50s. So he killed it. He did great. But I was thinking to myself, why would I want to run 26 miles when I could just not run at all? That's a legit mindset I had. It's like, okay, running's not, I don't think it's that fun. No one's forcing me to do it. Why would I go do that? And seeing you achieve your goals and talk about the experience towards that. Let's go back to your Iron Man. You talking about the training and the process to get there made me realize why running 26 miles is better than not running at all. If that makes sense. Because it's just you talking about that journey. It's like, oh, you're you got fulfillment. You're chasing something. You have ambition. You're driven. And that's so cool. That's awesome. How great is that to be able to work really hard for something and get there, but also just look back on it and be like, wow, back when I started, you were very fit, but I could barely run when I started. And now look at me now. That's so cool to be able to have that reflection. I admire that so much about you, dude. I think that's fucking awesome. And that has inspired me to like want to have goals and drives and know that the only person in my way of at least trying to achieve that is myself.
Yeah.
So thank you for putting that in my life and for
Of course.
letting me have that. It's changed it. It really has changed it. So thank you.
I appreciate it and glad to see that you're changing.
Yeah. And this podcast, we can wrap it here. Then we'll do some shout outs to some people. This podcast, that's honestly when I started it. At first I was like, yeah, let's do something crazy. But then spending the time with you and doing it, I was like, whoa, we're learning stuff. And now looking back on the year, just like, oh, I understand distribution now. We know how to post stuff on YouTube. We have a YouTube account we kind of know how to run. We know how to make reels for social media that we see on our TikToks and Instagrams other people do with captions in the words. Now we can do that. We couldn't do that before. And yeah, the podcast it's not the number one podcast in the world or anything like that, but we've learned so much and we've had so many cool experiences through this past year because we chose to give a shit. We chose to start something. And because of you, I feel like I understand the value of that.
Yeah. I would definitely say that learning is pleasurable, but the fulfillment of something comes from execution. And that's, I don't know, it's just so fun to like be able to apply something that you do learn. So, yeah. And I'll always stick by that quote is like, you can do anyone can do anything. Just when your mind and body are connected, like your possibilities are limitless.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, let's give
All
some
right.
shout outs.
Yeah, so we'd like to give a shout out to a fan of ours who's reached out to us pretty much after every episode, and every time she visits my roommate Cole, she talks about the episode with me, and she fully listened to it. And we've had so many great conversations. So, Krim Horatio, thank you so much for all of your support you have given to us. Thank you for still listening to us and taking the time out of your day to do that. You don't have to be doing that. You could be listening to other people talk about other things. So it really does mean a lot to us that you do that. You're the best. Thank you so much. We love you. Also, another buddy of ours, Clayton Brockman. We love you, dude. You are one of our closest friends, and so far our only guest. We actually we actually want that to change in the future. We want more guests. But yeah, you also listen to all of our episodes. The reason I decided I was like, Patrick, we should have on Clayton was because Clayton was texting us. He was engaging with us, talking about every episode. Was like, this is awesome. This is so cool. I'm loving this guy. So I was like, you should come on the show because you clearly care about it. And yeah, we know you still listen, man. It's because you'll talk to me about it. So we love you. Thank you so much for doing that, for listening.
We appreciate it, guys. Yeah, I'll run through a few more just because I know these are the people who have reached out. And so Adrian Nash, Katie Fillion, McKenna Cook, Susan Mullen, Jack's mom, Andrew Newen, William Branch, Delaney Niemeyer, Nate Stein, Elise Brockman, Clayton's mom, and then your sister as well. So those are people that have reached out several times, and we know we have more, and look forward to shouting more people out in the next year.
Yeah, and if we forgot you, we didn't. Oh, Vaughn Hall, thank you for listening. Case Johnson, I know, has listened to some. Thank you for listening. And yeah, just right there, those are two guys I've talked to individually about the show who have supported us. Thank you guys so much. We probably didn't get everybody, but if you did get shouted, don't take it personally. We'll do it like next time.
Take it personally.
take it personally. We purposely left your name out. Actually, if you're a listener and you think we know you're listening, we hate you.
Bam.
I'm sorry. I'm kidding.
The truth comes out.
I just realized how that would sound without seeing me smile on the video. They're just listening to the audio.
They can hear your laugh. You're good.
Oh, that's too funny. And yeah, we're Patrick and I are gonna meet over the holiday. We're gonna figure out how we want to move forward here. Do a little rebrand, maybe change up the title, maybe make it more broad. We'd love to talk to more people, just and get to know them, get to connect with more people. So yeah, we don't fully have a plan yet, but
It's in the works.
it's in the works. We're gonna figure it out. Next steps. This is kind of the end of chapter 1, I guess.
Yeah, I like that. Chapter 1 is a wrap.
Chapter 1 is wrapped. 20 episodes. We did it, man. That was a goal. That was our goal. Well, one of our goals.
Yep.
It was what was the percentile of percentage of podcasts that make it to 20?
I think it's like 10% make it to episode 3, and then of the ones that make it to episode 3, 10 make it to episode 20. So it's
Gotcha.
like 0.1 of the 0.1, which is pretty cool. So
Yeah, we did it.
to the next 0.1.
And we're not done. We're not done.
On the
with 20.
50.
More will be coming, and it's gonna be awesome. It's gonna be so cool. We're gonna just be the best podcast people in the world. We're never gonna stutter again. We're never gonna have a like or an again.
No more ums.
No more.
We will cut them all out.
I cut out in the videos. It cuts out some. It's like the AI will do it for us. But so we have literally been working on that. I'm trying to cut it out.
That's another hobby. Speaking.
Yeah. The public speaking is we're trying to get better at. But yeah, dude, listening, editing, and hearing yourself, listening back on episodes, you just want to rip your own head off. Right? Right?
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes I just want to rip my head off.
You go back to our first
If I say,
episode,
I'm like, if you say totally agree one more time, Jack Mullen, I'm gonna fucking kill you.
and you guys probably don't notice it, but like, you go
Yeah,
back to
exactly.
our
We
first
notice it more
episodes,
than anyone else.
Oh my God. And that's just the stages of improvement, but man, is it cringy sometimes. We're like,
Where I'm like, yeah, totally agree. I want to literally like rip my head off. I'm
yeah,
like, shut
totally
up.
agree. Alrighty. Well, let's wrap it there.
All right.
And guys,
That's
we
it.
will update you with our plan for next year. We'll probably do like a little post on that or something along those lines. But looking forward to another year, and thank you guys for listening as always.
Yeah, much love to everybody. Thank you guys so much for a great first year. Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Holidays to everybody. And yeah, we'll catch you in January.
Signing off. Peace.